Izokura Yamamoto towers above other great admirals of history, despite his 5'3" height. As a young officer, he paced the deck at Tsushima, sacrificing 2 fingers to the imperial glory. Later, he attended Harvard and served as naval attaché in Washington, gaining a first-hand understanding of the overwhelming resources and industrial capacity of the United States. Throughout his life, he excelled at games of skill and strategy, bridge, poker and shogi, which is similar to European chess. And it was with great skill that he tackled the problem of defeating the American giant. In August 1939, Yamamoto found himself at the pinnacle of his profession, commander and chief of the combined fleet. 2 months later, he observed a demonstration of naval air power from the bridge of the carrier Akagi. Turning to his chief of staff, the admiral remarked, "Impressive. If I can use our fast carriers to sink the American fleet in the mud of Pearl Harbor, I shall run wild in the Pacific for a year, maybe 2. From behind the 2 men, the absent-minded, though brilliant, Captain Kamito Kurishima murmured, "Be careful what you wish for, Admiral." The Admiral pressed for an explanation of his less than artful words. Kurishima replied, "The mud of Pearl is shallow. If the Americans are the industrial geniuses that you have preached about so often, then they will simply raise the ships and repair them. Far better if the mud is deep and the victory permanent." Yamamoto agreed, but lacking the ability to force the United States Navy into a deep-water engagement, he assigned Kurishima the task of planning a preemptive strike on Pearl Harbor. The resulting plan, though offering a strong possibility of tactical success, left both men troubled because it would not force America to negotiate a peace treaty. Roosevelt's commitment to defend the Philippines changed everything. The strike at Pearl was scrapped. Yamamoto officially unveiled Plan Z to the Army and Navy in September 1941. The plan meshed well with the ideas of a sudden offensive then being championed by the Army, one designed to secure quickly the Philippines and Malaya, and as a stepping stone to the resource-laden India and the East Indies. Plan Z anticipated an immediate advance of the United States Navy from Pearl following the line Midway, Wake Island, Guam and then the Philippines, in order to secure American territory, avoid Japanese land-based air and light surface units in the Marshalls, and force the battle line of the Imperial Japanese Navy into a decisive engagement east or northeast of the Philippines. Without attrition of the United States Navy, the Japanese combined fleet, divided as it was to support the Army, would face anticipated ratios of the USN to the Imperial Japanese Navy of 13:9 in battleships, 20:12 in cruisers, and 60:40 in destroyers by M+20, the earliest date on which the American fleet should near the Philippine coast. Only in fast carriers, 4 against 6, and naval air power, 400 against 500 planes, would ratios favour the Imperial Japanese Navy. Yamamoto, however, expected the Americans to split their light surface forces in order to support the British and Dutch, to escort troop convoys closely following their main fleet, and to cover the fleet's large logistical train. Central to Plan Z was a daring scheme to lull the Americans into misusing their carriers. 5 old merchantmen would be converted to appear as flat tops, including dummy planes on the decks. These vessels, accompanied by the light carrier Raihuho, would operate west of the Philippines. If they could fix American attention, Yamamoto's fast striking force of 6 carriers supported by 2 battle cruisers and assorted lighter vessels, would have an opportunity to weaken the United States Navy with repeated strikes once it reached Guam. The carriers would then drive the American fleet through the southern approaches to Manila, either San Bernardino Strait or Surigao Strait, where Yamamoto would be waiting with a gauntlet of destroyers, cruisers and battle wagons, quickly concentrated from forces supporting the southern offensive. Surviving elements of the American battle fleet would undoubtedly reach Manila, but there they could be pounded by land-based airplanes operating from newly captured fields on Luzon, or those recently occupied in formerly French Indochina. To avoid a change of heart by the Americans, Guam and Wake Island would not be seized until after the defeat of the United States main fleet. Though the Imperial Japanese Army did not smile upon Plan Z, arguing that the fast carriers would be better used covering the invasion of Malaya and clearing the South China Sea of Allied naval forces, they could not disagree with Yamamoto's logic though. Only the complete destruction of the American Pacific Fleet and the loss of the Philippines will shock the citizens of the United States into a negotiated peace. It will take 20 years and the resources of Asia to allow our nation to achieve industrial parity with our enemy, Samurai of Japan. We must have that quick peace. In the end, all present concurred that land-based aircraft and those surface units scheduled to rendezvous in the Surigao Strait would suffice to cover the invasions. In the following months, as negotiations with an American government angry at continued Japanese expansion in China and obviously preparing for a showdown in the Pacific moved towards collapse, Tokyo set December 7, 1941 as the date for its assault against Allied territories in the Pacific. Sunrise of that day found Yamamoto off the Philippine coast aboard the hastily completed super battleship Yamato, wondering how quickly the United States Navy would sortie from Pearl Harbor.